Testing. Yep, I'm broadcasting.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you. Good.
Good, good. Just tell me when to start recording on the Audacity.
Okay. Yeah, you got it. Oh, there he is. John, you there?
I am here now. Can you hear
Hey,
me?
Don.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is gonna be a bit more difficult way to do it, but yeah, I think it's definitely the way we gonna go for at least for a time. Excuse me. It's a short-term gap because I do want to find an easier way just so that we don't have to do it this way. Um, because like did a show with Brent yesterday. We did cinema chat, and he called us back like immediately afterwards. It was like it didn't record. Can we, do you mind doing it again? And I had no problem doing it again. So but I mean, yeah, MP3 Skype recorder and Skype is just it's shit, and I don't want to have another thing where it doesn't record or records part but not all again. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna do this for a bit, at least for the next couple of shows. Well, I take that back. This show and then probably the next one because hopefully uh, by the time we record in January, whenever that is, I'll have a better solution or something. Also, might want to get this out of the way. Do you guys, would you be okay with recording our last episode next week?
Uh, that's fine. Hello?
John?
Staticky sound. Hello?
Hello? Yeah. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes. I can hear
I
you.
can hear you guys.
Yeah, and we can hear
These
you.
weird staticky fluxes.
That's okay. Um, I don't, I didn't pick it up on, well, since we're all recording our own audio, we probably won't hear that static thing. And even when I was looking at the thing we did yesterday, Jen, I didn't hear any static or anything like that. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I just kind of skipped around, but it
Yeah.
seemed clear on both sides. So if we do hear static in the call, we probably won't hear it in our recording. And even if we do, there's ways for me to get rid of it.
Okay.
But as long as we can all hear each other, yes,
Mm-hmm.
John. Mm, John, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. All right. Uh, so are you guys free next Wednesday?
I am not free next Wednesday.
Okay. How about Thursday?
I am free, but I'm not going to be able to do it. I got to do a Tempe's World, and I don't know when I'm going to do it between now and then. So I'll probably be record that on a day I have free. To
Okay.
be honest, which will probably be Thursday.
Well then, well the 21st or the 22nd.
First or the 22nd. Why do we have to do it so early? Why can't we wait till like the last week?
You want to wait then? I could do that. That's no problem with me. But I just figured, Christmas is that week, and then New Year's. I figured we didn't want to try and scramble around to do a
Christmas
broadcast.
is on that Monday and New Year's is on that Sunday. That gives us 6 days between the two. I say let's just wait.
Okay, well then let's just hammer in a date real quick then.
Okay.
The 28th. So you don't want to.
I
Don't
just
want
don't
to
know
do
what
it.
I'm gonna be. I just don't know what I'm gonna be doing, and I don't want to plan something and then have to bail out on it. I got some concerts. I got some travel I may be doing around the area. Becky has 2 weeks off, so I just don't want to commit to
Well, that's why I wanted to
Wednesday.
do it next week so that we had those 2 weeks free, so nobody would have to try to pencil anything in.
Yeah, but well, it's not gonna work for me. So just why don't you plan on it and doing it when you guys can, and if I can make it, I can. If I can, I can.
Well,
It's
I
just a
guess that
year
kind.
review. I think it'll be fine.
Well, okay, hold on. Okay. 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 Is everybody recording? Don't start your recording now, but I just want to make sure you guys know how to. You haven't had a problem with that.
Hmm.
No problem. Mm,
Okay. Before we get started, I guess there were some things we all wanted to talk about. We might as well get ahead and do that because I know we have to keep this show a bit tight. Um, I don't know if Jen still has to go at 8, but I definitely need to be done around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I've,
Yeah, me too.
well, let's just set 8 as the very latest and try and shoot for 7:30, 7:45.
yeah, let's do that. But yeah, so the whole scheduling thing, I know it's been bugging me that we've been doing a lot of 2 man shows, and like we haven't done. I don't remember when the last time we did a show where like all three of us were on here.
Yeah,
And I
last week
know,
was the first time in a while.
yeah, and then that thing messed up. Oh God. But yeah. So I guess just what's everyone's thoughts on that? Because like I like the dynamic of the three of us together, and
Hmm.
it's just I don't know. It bugs me that that hasn't been happening a lot lately. I know scheduling and things like that, but I'm just wondering, is there a way that we can try to make sure, even if it's just having one day free, that we make sure that we're all free, so that we know that we'll only record on that day. Like maybe it's just we set Wednesday aside as a record day, or maybe have it set up earlier in advance instead of I mean usually we do like every 2 weeks, and I know part of the problem is that I've been like, are you guys free this day? And then it's up to you guys to try to get free. But um yeah, so thoughts? Anybody have anything to say about that?
I mean, I think that's a good idea. I mean, the only time I'd be able to be like, well, I won't be able to make it is if, like, I'm sick or something. But otherwise, I mean, it's nice to have a set day. It's easier. At least I think it is.
The thing is, I have like a lot of changing stuff that fluctuates. Sometimes concerts tickets I didn't plan on going to will end up being really cheap, so I'll take it. I'll take it. I can commit to like maybe one Wednesday a month or something like that. But with trying to do Tempe's World more frequently, um, I can't really commit to much more than that. Like I've canceled a couple of shows over the past months to do, in my humble opinion, which is fine. But it's, I mean, I want it to be one of my podcasts. I don't want it to be my focus.
Okay, so you want to be more like a part-time host then?
Like a guest or something.
I mean, I don't
A
mind,
regular guest,
like I
or
don't mind being like I don't mind doing that. I just like I don't want to have to feel the pressure that like oh if I don't show up they're not going to record. Like I don't think there's really that big of a deal between. I mean, there's a big deal obviously between a 2 person and a 3 person show. I just don't think it suffers that greatly. I guess. I mean, we're especially with the fact that we're just going to be talking current events now and not so much, the big dynamic of the election. I think it'll be.
We'll be talking about the look. What do you mean?
I mean, the election's about over, and that's really where we've had the real dynamic of like differences. So I just don't know that we're. I don't think there's going to be that much news that'll make a difference. That there's not a real left voice there if I'm not there. And Reg, you could just be the left voice. You just talk more.
Okay, so you just want us to set up a date, and if you can make it, you can make it type thing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I just don't think you should not do it because I can't do it. I just if I can do it, I'll be there, and if not, go ahead and record, put the episode out. Don't let news pass by just because we want to have a 3 person show. Same way, if you're not doing something, and we need to get a show out, then me and Jen can figure it out.
Okay. All right, I guess that works. Um. Anything else anybody wanted to bring up?
I think that was probably it. I mean, I haven't looked at. Did you send out notes again, or are we just re-recording what we did before? Right.
Yeah, we're recording what we did before,
All right.
which means we can't be shocked about Turkey, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Have they officially done that? Because I still haven't seen like an official.
I saw multiple articles on it, but
Like I can't find anything from like BBC or whatchamacallit.
sorry.
Here we are.
You know what? You're right. I'm not seeing anything from like BBC.
I just saw. I see something that says they sent 300 troops to reinforce an operation against ISIS and Kurdish fighters, but nothing about it like an official declaration.
I hope this isn't some sort of. Oh, hold on. Here's something from Newsweek. Well, it says they entered Turkey to end the rule of Assad. That sounds like war. This fucking name. I hate websites that just, you go to the store and then they load a million one things so that when you click on something, you're. Anyway, let's go over what we're gonna talk about real quick. I guess a lot of these stories are. It's almost for some of them, it's kind of a good thing that we had that foobar.
Son of a bitch.
We'll talk about Standing Rock and then how they got the injunction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Army Corps denied the pipeline.
Yep.
Pipeline. I think there's no point in talking about Pence and Hamilton.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, we can, but I think that's kind of
That's
very
all.
old news. It's
Yeah.
beating a dead horse.
Um, I guess we could talk about. Do we want to talk about what's his name? Trump getting Time Person of the Year.
Sure.
We'll just make it Trump news. talk about the fracking, the prisoner worker strike, uh, then all this officer involved shooting stuff like that. Need to change the Michael Slater mistrial.
So, I got a dumb question. I vaguely remember this, but I don't know why I don't remember because his name's the same as an actor. I like it. The Will Smith trial, I guess, begins. I don't know if we really care about that, but what was?
Nah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't. I'm just. Is that something you guys? Because then again,
What's
it's
this trial?
New Orleans Saints. Will Smith. Let's see. Will Smith was shot and killed by Cardell Hayes.
Oh, is that the one where they let the guy go and then arrested him later or something?
I don't know. I haven't read too much about it. They're just making it sound like it's this big trial, and I just don't. Maybe it's because they were, Will Smith was a football player. I don't know. I was just curious if I don't recall.
John,
It's hard
do
for me to
know what
remember
that's
any.
about?
So basically, he got into a car accident with some guy. He hit a guy in from behind, then sped off. That guy caught up with him. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he hit a guy in the back. Then I guess sped off. That guy caught up with him. They got into an altercation. They both got out of their cars. Will Smith and another one of his guys who was traveling with him got into a fight or tried to fight the guy. Will Smith started going back to his car, reached into his car. The other guy had a gun, shot Will Smith. Police arrived, arrest the other guy. He goes to jail.
Okay, so this is the
But-
one I'm thinking about.
No. You're thinking about the one that not the one that just happened, but the one with you're thinking about Joe McKnight, which just happened last weekend.
Yeah.
But this same county. I think it's pretty much the same county. That's the reason why people were comparing it to the one that just happened. Just because, like, same county, similar situations, different outcomes for the shooters. But I don't really care about that Will Smith thing.
Okay. I only reason I noticed that on Facebook was because the name, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on with Will Smith?" And then I realized which Will Smith it was. So
Like, someone shot Will Smith?
I was like, "No!"
No,
But,
Big Willie style.
Okay then. So that looks like it's gonna. I feel like I should look up some real news or whatever.
Well, we can talk about the mistrial and we can talk about some of the nominations.
Oh, I want to save that for next year when we know for sure, because it's such a ball of crazy. And like that can be a show unto itself, really.
True.
Like, my God, who he wants for EPA, and then he's talking about nominating Petraeus, but yet Petraeus, if he wanted to do the job as Secretary of State, would have to get approval from
From his
parole
probation.
officer, probation officer.
That's funny.
Of
Oh,
course, I
jeez.
guess he could just pardon him, couldn't he? Like once they get into office.
Yeah, but presidents tend to do that at the end.
Yeah, but what has he done that presidents tend to do?
This is very true.
That's true.
Okay. Ooh, John Glenn died, you guys.
I know, right? Wrong. I killed him.
Well,
Don't tell the feds.
okay, keep it hush hush.
Anyway, what I'm talking about, they were probably listening in. They're like, move in.
You know, I was thinking the other day, how how we did the April Fool's podcast.
Hmm.
Well, Trump really won. We're here.
I know, right? That's funny. I mean, yeah, it's funny. Okay, if there's nothing else, let's get started then. Okay, I know what I needed. Let's all count down
Hey,
from
wait, before we
three.
get
Okay, go ahead.
1 second. Blah, 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 blah.
What was that?
I was making sure my thing was recording.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you said something. I'm now recording as well.
Me too.
Okay, and just look at Audacity, make sure it's actually recording because you can see your voice and all that. Yep. Okay. Then let's count down from three. That way, it will be easier for me to to sync the tracks when I put them all together.
Okay.
Okay. Um,
Wait, is it 3, 2, 1, and then we hit it on one, or we hit it after one?
I think we're just saying
3, 2, 1.
through 3, 2, 1.
It's just so that I see because
It-
we're gonna do 3, 2, 1. Then I'm gonna pause and go into the thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Ready? Okay.
Yep.
3,
3,
2,
2,
2.
1.
1.
Welcome to In My Humble Opinion. It's been a while since we've put out a podcast. We've just been having like horrible technical problems, and it's just been a crazy past couple of months. Well, past month rather. But yes, we're back, and this is the podcast for the week of December 8th, 2016. That's when we're recording. So if anything happens on the 9th, don't look at us because we weren't here to talk about it. um, let's. This episode, what we wanted to do is talk about things that get caught up on things that were glossed over or missed totally because of the election cycle. So some of this stuff is going to be months old, but we think it's stuff that warrants being talked about. Um, and with me today, Jen, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Could use some more sleep, but whatever. How about you? How about you guys?
I'm good. And John, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a little tired. Emotional roller coaster this week, but I'm doing well.
Yeah, well, I totally get where you're coming from, and it's kind of a blessing in disguise that we had to wait a week to talk about some of these stories because, a lot of them, big things happened, and we would have missed it if we had put what we put out last week when the recording went all foobar on us. But before we get started with that, let's do a little election wrap up. And Jen, I know it's a month later, but why don't you tell us about your election night and what you think about the election and Trump so far?
Well, I was in Wyoming for that, visiting a friend, and it was pretty. We were rating on WoW, but we kept, taking breaks to check, update, and I was actually way more nervous at the idea because I had a feeling that Trump was going to win. Not in the beginning of the night, but then once he started like taking states, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. And the more the night went on, you know what I mean? He was really just kicking Hillary's butt. And so my stomach was in knots the whole night. I didn't think I'd be that. I knew I wouldn't like either candidate, obviously. And I'd be a little bit, I guess, nervous. But I was really worried about people's reactions to Trump winning and like the citizens. And I guess I was kind of right to be a little bit worried. I mean, things didn't go too chaotic, but they got chaotic, but it wasn't as crazy as I thought it might get. But yeah, so what I think of him so far, I mean, he's I mean, he's gone back on a few things he said he was gonna, that he really was pushing for during his the election process, but his campaign. But I don't know. He's still being crazy Trump on Twitter, and I don't know. I'm trying to be very positive and open minded about, you know, hoping things will turn out better than we all think they're going to. Because I'm a little bit tired of the doom and gloom. But yeah, he's not really helping with that. So I don't know.
I will have to say this. I'm a bit tired of seeing all his stupid tweets. And I think what I'm tired more of is everybody responding to his tweets as if those are news stories, you know? Like you
Yeah,
have big time news agencies and mainstream, quote unquote, mainstream media, you know, covering a single tweet, you know, and like that's not a story, you guys.
they it. I think what at this point what bothers me most, other than, I mean, some of what he says does bug me, but um, well, most of what he says bugs me, but uh, what bugs me most is that the media is, they're having a field day at just talking, like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even matter what he does. He looks out the window, and this is obviously not an actual example, but he looks out the window and, oh my gosh, he's planning to, you know, blow up his neighbors or something. Like, it, people, things are just getting ridiculous. They say he says something small, they blow it up. I mean, there's some things that deserve attention, like his statement on the flag. I do believe that that was, even though it was said on Twitter, I think it was newsworthy. Maybe not like for a week, but you know what I mean. I do think that does need to be a story that should be brought up, just because it's kind of, you know, it's kind of, I think, really serious um, thing to post about. But otherwise, we all know how he is. Like, at this point, why? Like, I feel like there's a broken. Like, people are getting to the point where they don't care anymore. I said this. I
Right.
think it was on Twitter or Facebook. People are getting to the point where they don't care anymore, and they're going to start ignoring it. And so
And
this
that's the
quote,
worst part. You don't want to use up all the goodwill, not necessarily goodwill, but you know, you don't want to keep crying wolf over stupid
well,
things.
yeah, I mean
Especially
that.
when, you know, he hasn't even implemented any. I'm not the type that I was at first. You know, at first I was like, let's wait till he gets in office and then before we start demonizing him and criticizing him. And then he went in, surrounded himself with like the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
And so, you know, I'm like, yeah, this guy's an idiot. But at the same time, he's just doing what people who voted for him wanted him to do by putting in people who are really going to do a lot of damage to the system are really going to wreck the system. I don't think they're going to wreck it the way people wanted them to, you know, especially since
well,
he's putting in a bunch of, you know, some one percenters are really
he's
surrounded him.
he's put in a couple people that were, or he's, the plan is he's putting in a couple people who weren't exactly in his court. You know what I mean? Which I think was kind of which was a good thing. But yeah, there's been some others he's like, just wow. But
Well, you have someone like Steve Bannon as your chief strategist, who's, you know, some would call him alt-right. Most people, I think, would sensibly call him a racist, or at least someone who has pushed racist through his media. And then again, you have a bunch of billionaires who donated a bunch of money to his campaign, but aren't necessarily experts in their field. Head of the education, who's never been a teacher or administrator or run a public school or private school. It's just one of those things where it's like, how bad is this train wreck going to be, or is he a genius? Because I feel like it's not going to fall somewhere in the middle. It's going to be one of those two.
Especially since he's putting people together that seem to hate one another. You know, I mean, I don't know how people are going to stomach having Mitt Romney in his cabinet if he
but
decides to put him there.
I don't understand. I don't understand that way of thinking, because he should have people that are of very different. He should actually have a way more diverse cabinet, in my opinion. But he should be having different people because that's where you get your, you know what I mean? You don't want people who are all similar way of thinking. I
Right.
don't, and that's one thing I will say. I think he needs to be a bit more diverse, and he shouldn't have like Bannon in there at all. But um, Mitt Romney, I think, is one of his choices that was kind of a good idea, if for anything, because he spoke out so much against Trump. You know what I mean? And I think that in the long run, that'll be kind of a good thing as long as he sticks to how he feels about Trump. You know what I mean? He can speak up more when he sees something he disagrees with, which we all know he does disagree with Trump, or he did during the election process. So I personally don't see the big deal. I know some of the people that my parents know who voted are like pissed off that Romney was, you know, it's been entertained because, I guess of, his stance on Trump during the election. I'm like, well, what do you want? People all in this who all feel the same and they're all best buds? Like that's exactly what we don't want.
Yeah, I do think that there's something to be said about these people who oppose Trump joining his administration because you can, in some ways, I think if you're the type who thinks he's dangerous, that might be a way to minimize the damage, to work from the inside, so to speak. But at the same time, you don't know what type of person Trump is going to be when he's the president. If he's going to be the type who's going to push those people away or ignore them, then I think if you're going in there to minimize the damage, then you have to be willing to make a stink when he goes too far, or
Well,
if he
yeah,
goes too far.
yeah. I mean, if all the people, let's just say he puts in, and if Romney gets in and he doesn't do jack to go against, when he's, what I mean, against what Trump might be trying to push at the time, then yeah, that's a problem. But we can. I think something else that I'm getting a little tired of is people trying to assume what's going to go down. Like we don't know. We can try to think, okay, yeah, this is probably where it might go. But past that, like there are whole shows like on like news shows where people are just spending the whole thing just talking about all the evil that Trump is going to do with these people, and we don't even know exactly what's going to happen. And we got to remember too is I know we talked about it some, and I do feel that there's a chance always that we can lose how we do things in our government, you know what I mean, real quickly, but at the same time, as long as our government stays in how we run, it's set up so the president can't just like we couldn't blame Obama for everything. And I understand Trump has some very extreme views, but just like, you can't blame Obama for, everything that actually really, I mean, you really can't solely blame him for everything, or any president for that matter. We can't assume that Trump is just going to turn around and take the reins and, unless the rest of the government is like, okay, we are going to give all our power to you. I'll hit, like the whole, that disgusting white supremacist guy who had people hailing Trump.
Yeah, inhaling him.
Oh
Yeah.
God, that made me sick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be one of the things we have to wait and see, and hope. I would say
Do we
hope for the
really
best.
though? Do we really?
But
Like,
Still,
I feel like the
because
people
here's
he's. Well, let me say, with the people he's already nominated, with the things he's already pushing, and the actions he's already doing. I mean, he's basically already he tried to take credit for an investment by a Japanese firm that was agreed upon like 13 months ago, but was just getting ready. It's finally at the point where it's about to be enacted, and he's like, "Oh, look, they're investing all this money because of me." Like, he's been a habitual liar, pathological liar the entire time. That's going to keep on going.
well, yeah.
He's cowtailed and he's used what are they call dog whistle terms and tactics. That's going to continue. Like, I think there's a lot of things that you can predict just on what he's
But
already done and continues.
but my point is to repeatedly talk about, like, I think all at this point all it's doing for the public is riling. It's stoking fire, like an unnecessary fire. Like I don't it's not that I think we need to sit down and shut up when we see something wrong. You know what I mean? Because that we shouldn't. But at the same time, right now, until he actually starts, trying to put stuff into play and whatnot, and even these appointments aren't something he can just choose, and then that's how it is. Don't they have to be voted on by?
Yeah, many of
Not
them.
not
But
most of them.
but I guess
That's
the
the thing.
problem
Most of
with
them
that
don't
is
have to be.
right. I mean, but the problem there is that we're talking about a Republican-controlled Congress.
But that won't be. I might sound ignorant here in a second, but that won't be for his whole presidency, will it?
God willing,
We
no.
don't know.
Hopefully,
And
2018.
well, what I'm saying is, though, is there when's 2018 is the next round of
Yeah.
elections. So work on getting people out there to vote these people that they don't like out. Like, I'll admit, when I voted, when they're for this election, and they asked you if you wanted to keep so and so in, I think it was the Senate that we were voting. I was like, nope, nope, nope. Like, honestly, I think, obviously I'm a big supporter of term limits for all that stuff, but um, you know, people need to get out there and vote and stop. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the perfect thing that we should be doing. I just feel like if we continue down the path that we're getting, people are going to get immune to all of it, because at some point people are going to get tired of,
Yeah, sky is
doom
falling.
and gloom, and they're just going to be like, screw it, because this is how, honestly, Americans are. I mean, we have attention. I'll admit this has gone on a little bit longer, but our attention span is, as a whole, isn't as long. So if something's too bad, you know what I mean, there'll be something that'll come along that's not important that will grab their attention, because this is getting old. It's getting boring. And I mean, I'll even admit, for me, I love politics and I love, getting into all this stuff. But I'm getting to the point now to where I'm starting to just not even pay attention to a lot of the Trump stories, because of course Trump said something stupid. No kidding. He's been doing that since, that's how he got elected. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why that's major news, and I don't know why when the media is outright trying to, and I don't feel bad for him because he deserves it, but the media is outright trying to, just trash him. Like, there's no objectivity with the media, and we've known that for a long time, but like now it's just so blatant when it comes to Trump, and it's just getting really old, and I'm kind of done with it, and I'm not a Trump supporter, don't get me wrong, what I mean, I'm not ignorant to think that, not that they're ignorant, but like I'm not ignorant enough to think that the man is some great, you know what I mean, he's going to be amazing. I really don't believe he will, but I just feel like there's better use of our time and our energy, more on a local level in our, in our country. And then when it comes time to vote, and then if he does start coming out with some actual stuff that's like, then people can then protest for that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's how I
No,
feel.
I get with you. I'm with you there. I think we should. I hate to say wait and see, but I think really that's the best thing to do, because
Well, just be
what
more
he says
specific.
is crazy. I mean, but crazy is what he's been doing, and who knows what actually being in the office will do. But
I just hope. I
okay,
hope
go ahead.
that everyone keeping him, calling him. This could be wishful. All right, maybe I will think. but I'm into it. I'm hoping it's sort of like public opinion getting ahead of the curve. The hell this man's capable of, if that makes sense.
Sorry, say that again. We lost you.
Yeah, all I heard was ahead of the curve.
You still there?
Darn you, internet.
John,
Take
you
me away,
there?
John.
I think we may have lost him.
Mm-hmm. Sucks too, because he was making
Yeah, we're here.
He's muted. It says he's muted.
Oh,
I don't know if that's on purpose or not. Oh, yeah, he said. Okay, muted myself. Computer froze for a second.
oh. Okay, unmute yourself. I can't hear you if you're talking. He can't hear us.
Well, that's crappy.
That sucks. Hold on. Where did I get to the talking, the chatting?
There's a little blue chat bubble. He left.
Oh, he left? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So maybe he'll come back. If he ever moves, he needs to get better internet.
Yeah. I don't know why it seems to be getting worse and worse. I couldn't live with internet like that.
Yeah. Surprises me that I don't know why it surprises me. It's an old city, but what he lives in Boston, right? Or near Boston?
Manchester by the Sea. It's like right. It's outside of Boston.
Okay.
Let's see if he can get back in using the link. I hope he's still recording.
Oh man.
And he's back.
Oops.
Are you back? Can you hear us?
I am back.
Okay. All we heard, the last thing we heard was you said something about ahead of the curve.
I was just saying, I hope that by people protesting and bitching and moaning that they'll be getting ahead of the curve as far as stopping. Instead of him thinking he can do something batshit crazy, he'll be like, "Oh wait, never mind. They're already protesting. I can't go that far."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
If
doubt
that
it.
makes sense.
He doesn't seem to care.
right. I think what's going to be interesting is whatever pushback there is, if there is any. I think that's going to be more telling. Whether his party sticks with him or if they push back. But I do want to move on to enough about Trump. let's move on to some of the stories that we did miss and updates for some other things like that. And let's start off with the Standing Rock. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, there have been protests over the Dakota Access Pipeline, um, and it basically started with um, it started off with the Army Corps of Engineers approving this pipeline to go through uh, the Sioux. Uh, I should know this off the top of my head, but going over the land on this reservation. And then it started with some protests, and those protests went viral long before the media uh, even decided to start talking about it. And like it was amazing to watch this protest go on. And neither one of the candidates talked about it. These people were out there getting hosed with water and put in cages built for animals and livestock and things like that. And it just seemed like nobody was doing anything for these people. But just this week, the Army Corps of Engineers denied the pipeline, and so all construction is supposed to stop on it. If I'm correct, isn't that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So it's a win for the protesters and the Standing Rock tribe.
Fully see the 2,000 veterans who went up and helped give a lot of the protesters a break, and it really helped out the first responders who helped out. But you just don't know what the next administration is going to do. They might use the National Guard next time instead of just goons.
Yeah,
But
because I think
I don't
that
know.
is
I
one of the
just think
concerns. That is one of the concerns that Trump might just
go
reverse
on.
this. Yeah, I was saying that that's one of the concerns that Trump might just go in and reverse this like day one. So, but I guess that remains to be seen.
Well, hopefully they'll just do what they could do. It's just like um, they'll just allow them to, just go a few miles north or a few miles south, whatever direction they need to go, and just not, have to go through these lands of these people. I mean, historical things where it's not a good look to be having the United States government beat up on Native Americans again. Like, let's not have that be shown worldwide. I mean, using cannons in freezing conditions, that's just inhumane and despicable.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that during this thing, the UN came in for human rights violations to check things out. I was like, what country are we in? But it has turned out for the better, as they got the injunction and the construction will stop. Um, I know one thing they said is that they might ship the oil via trains, which is apparently more dangerous, but I guess that is a
Just because of
possibility.
infrastructure problems.
Right, infrastructure that we've known
Like
about
fixing
and haven't
railroad
wanted to fix.
tracks.
Um, and speaking of oil, let's talk about this earthquake that happened in Kansas. Um, this happened back in October. There was like one of the worst earthquakes in that area, the 4.7. And the reason it's notable is not just for the fact that where it happened near Wichita, but for the fact that it's been directly linked to fracking, and it just seems like fracking is causing all these earthquakes and little tremors everywhere where fracking has occurred. But people in those areas, I guess they just want to deal with it. It doesn't seem like anybody's really pushing back against fracking, especially in those areas.
Well, I think you have these small communities that benefit off of it, but you also have this feeling and understanding that when big industry comes in, their money speaks louder, and which makes their voice louder to the elected officials. I mean, you have entire towns to fight fracking, but bulldoze and run over it. From that town, you're not dealing with those earthquakes, and you don't really care. I mean, that's the thing that's so special about the Standing Rock protest. If you're looking at Standing Rock, Dakota areas, pipeline accidents in the last 20 years. So there's significant precedence to say that this environment, and we can show you in our own. I don't care. And with these fracking things, if you're a guy whose land has been useless, but then someone says, "Hey, I can put a pump on here. You won't be here, or your land might be useless. Or we'll give you $4 million over 10 years, 20 years." Of course, you're going to take that, or most people would. People just aren't at the point where we're like, our environment is more important than our energy.
Well, I think on a personal level, as far as like people, citizens go, I think a lot of it is people are about, well, everyone is about themselves first. You know what I mean? So if it means surviving, and since in certain areas it's really hard to, you know what I mean, especially for some, they get, you know what I mean?
It just seems so short-sighted and
Yeah, but when you need to put food on the table for your kids and you're starving, I'm sorry, but that's human nature. I'm not saying it's okay. Well, actually, I kind of am. I don't think it's good that what's actually happening, because basically they're taking advantage of these people. They know, you know what I mean? If they throw enough money at them, they're going to get what they want. And, people, I think a lot of people on the citizen level, outside of businessmen and whatnot and politicians, don't speak out against it as much, because a lot of the people aren't we have a lot of people who are poor in this country, like way more than I think people actually think we do. You know what I mean? And again, when you have kids, or even when you're just yourself and you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, you know what I mean? People get desperate, and they're willing to look past stuff as long as they and theirs are taken care of. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I just don't think that's the majority of people. I think the majority are just big energy companies that have been able to of land, or just already own them. I think the saddest thing is the fact that fracking basically benefits the shareholders and the company itself at the detriment to the general populace. And I think it's sad that we as a society don't even care enough to be like, yeah, it's nice that you're making a few extra million, or even say $1 billion, whatever. But like, you're polluting this drinking water that now is flammable, and you're destroying these underground water tables that were used for the nature around here that is now doesn't have enough water and is now in drought. Like, you're causing earthquakes in places that have never had earthquakes. I think it's unfortunately is one of the fatal flaws of humanity, is just our ability to value profits over people.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think anything could happen that would cause this all to change, or do you think
it start affecting the wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
the politicians, the wealthy, the famous? Yeah,
because that's the only way thing ever changed in this country. It's like, what would it take would be like some earthquake that sinks first class gated community, or poisons their water, or sickens their children. Because look at Flint. How long has Flint still, since we've known how bad their water is, how lead poisoned their pipes are? They're still that bad. No one's gone to jail over it. A few people had to resign, but no one who actually made real decisions. It's like the opiate addiction. No one really cared about that until rich kids started dying.
Yep. It's not even just our country that's true. That's in most first world, countries.
That's our species.
I mean, yeah, like nothing changes unless it affects the rich, because the rich are what controls really the direction of our society and how we, you know what I mean? They're I hate to say this because it's such a, I think, I think of fashion when I think this, but they're the trendsetters. You know what I mean? They're the ones, because they're the ones that control everything financially. You know,
Well, let me
money
ask you this. Do you guys think?
controls.
Well, so you're saying, I don't know. I guess I find it dismaying that it, that like nothing's gonna happen until it happens to rich people. It's like, do you think that like we could lose a whole city or something and then nothing would change, or do you think?
Yeah, unless that cities like New York City, Atlanta, Miami, like
Depends upon the city.
yeah, like I don't see anything changing. Like because there have been so many things that have happened already. Again, the fact that nothing has serious has happened with the Flint, like that is just so crazy. I mean, the fact that people, yeah, there are people that on Facebook will be like, "Oh, that sucks," but in reality, they're like, "Well, it didn't happen to me." You know what I mean? And I can't change anything.
No
I
one's
can't do anything. So, you know,
exactly. No one's marching in the streets over Flint. Like
yeah.
no one cares about that stuff because it's not their town, and it doesn't. It didn't happen to enough people who matter. Like if that happens in Beverly Hills, if Beverly Hills they found out that they had like lead, lead, not flavor, but lead contaminated water in fucking Beverly Hills, that shit would be all over the place.
Oh, that,
You'd have,
and it would be corrected in like
dude,
a week.
pronto,
Yeah.
that stuff would be over.
Yeah. Because
I live
they're
out.
children. I mean, their children are obviously way more important than anyone else's. It's just, yeah. I mean it's sad, and it's not that we shouldn't want to try to change things, but it's, you know, well, okay, Standing Rock. I didn't even, and this isn't. I didn't start noticing more reports on it until I don't remember the actress's name, but she started protesting and recording her protests. God, what is her name? She played on like Divergent and hold on. But you know, until certain stuff like that started, I think she's one of the reasons why it started becoming more of a, at least the world started seeing it more. You know what I mean? Because you start getting actors and actresses showing their faces on a, you know what I mean, on a particular project of theirs. And I mean, it's great that she did that. I'm not knocking her. I think it was awesome that she did it. But and people will notice. But if they don't, no one notices, because you know what I mean. Like, and again, the right people, I should say, don't care enough. Now you start getting, you know, again, famous people, rich and famous people, who start throwing a fit about something, and oh my goodness, they're going to make us look bad. We can't, you know what I mean? Or if they're affected, we can't have this because their money, they'll take their money elsewhere. And it's a sad fact, but that's how it's been, like that throughout history. And as much as we say that we're civilized, that we're getting more civilized as a society, and it's not just our country, it's the world. There are many things have stayed the same. I mean, there have been a lot of things that have changed, but a lot has stayed the same throughout history. And I really, and I don't mean to be negative Nancy, but I really believe that that's how it will always be, because that is basic human, that seems to be a human nature thing. You know what I mean? And it's a sad part of our nature, but that's how it is. And
Well, I hope the right city gets taken under, because like this is a big problem and it doesn't seem like it's going to be fixed anytime soon. And like we're coming to the close of 2016, and once again, a hot, another hottest year on record. And if we don't fix this soon, and maybe it's already too late, but if we don't fix it, things are not going to get better. They're only going to go downhill from here. So,
mm-hmm.
um, let's move on to some updates on some, this year we've seen a lot of coverage on officer-involved shootings, and we just wanted to give some updates on a couple of them. Let's start with the Philando Castile shooting. The officer was charged with manslaughter. Um, the Keith Lamont shooting, Keith Lamont Scott shooting in North Carolina, here in Charlotte. There were no charges in his death. The officer was cleared. There were charges in the death of Terrence Kutcher. And then most recently, just this week, Michael Slager, who shot Walter Scott in South Carolina as he was running away. Um, he had a mistrial. There were, 11 jurors that wanted to convict, and one who just for some whatever reason couldn't and wouldn't convict. I assume there's going to be a retrial,
There will be. They've
but
already said they're doing it next year.
yeah, I mean it's he and Michael Slater still has to deal with federal charges. I think that's going to start in the next couple of weeks or so. His trial on that, and what God, what's that guy's name? Brandon Roof, uh,
Dylan Roof.
Dylan Roof. Yeah, his trial just started this week as well. But that was in the where he killed a bunch of people in a black church. So that started. Um, but yeah, of all these, the one that just kind of blows my mind is the Michael Slager. That you know, even with it on camera and cut his bright as day. There's no contesting the incident. There's no way to explain that away, but still, there's one. You can still find one person who will say not guilty. Kind of amazing.
Just blows my mind. It almost makes me want to be like violently angry when I think about it. It's the idea that someone could go obstruct the law because they don't want it. It just blows my mind. It made me so angry and depressed. Like I didn't know what to do. It was just I'm still just like completely in shock when I think about like the idea that something like this would be allowed in this country, in this nation. But I mean, again, not surprising. It's one of those things where it's like you look at the jury makeup: 12 jurors, 11 white in the South. All it takes is one juror to not want to follow through on the law, and that's what you get. You get mistrials, and luckily, at least he will be tried again. But it is hard as an African American in this country to feel like you can expect any type of justice, even in clear-cut cases now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I was shocked, but I don't know. It just, and then I think what was interesting too was some of the people who, I guess you could call them defenders, for lack of a better term. Like I saw some people who were like, "Well, he was charged with the wrong thing in the first place." I'm like, because apparently and this is interesting too. In South Carolina, if you kill somebody but there's no intent, it's if you kill somebody with no intent, it's manslaughter. But if you kill somebody with malicious intent, it's murder. And like I think most of us think of murder as murder versus manslaughter is like manslaughter is an accident, but murder is malicious. But apparently, I guess from what I understand, and this is talking to some people who work in law enforcement in South Carolina, there is a difference, and I guess the way they see it down there, which is a bit mind blowing, but still, I don't know.
Legalize murder. Call it what it is.
Well, no, what I mean is the reason I say is mind blowing because even if that's the case, when you plant a taser on somebody and then you lie and you shoot them in the back, I don't know how you could say that that's not malicious. you know, um, but it's good that he'll be tried again. And I just think this is just a case where there's just one guy who, that guy that we all know who will always defend the police regardless. So one of those guys just happened to get on the jury.
I just feel bad for his family. Like, can't even imagine what they're thinking. Because if that was me and that someone killed someone I loved and then got off, blatant evidence like that, I would be looking for that person. I'd be like, I forget a mistrial or retrial. Let's just do it old Wild Wild West style, and I'll take care of that on my own. Because it shouldn't happen in a civilized country. It just shouldn't.
I don't think you should say something like that on
Yeah, that's probably not a good.
Hey, Reds, as long as no one kills you, I don't think it'll be fine.
All right, then on that note, let's move on. Since we're on now accessories before the fact. um, here in North Carolina, almost a month after the election, Pat McCrory finally conceded the election. Uh, the problem was that Pat McCrory was calling into question a lot of votes and was claiming that there was voter fraud in North Carolina, and because he lost, I think by a little over 100,000 votes or something, so he was calling for recounts to try and see if that would turn the election, and saying everything from voter fraud to people were either allowed to vote that shouldn't have voted, or people who did vote were had their votes cast out. So it was a hodgepodge of bullshit, in my opinion, because the prevailing wisdom is that he was trying to push for this little known law or statute where the state Congress could declare the winner in cases like the governor and other lower appointments if the a number of the counties didn't certify their results by a certain time or something. So the idea or the prevailing thought is that he was trying to run out that clock, which would have been, mind-boggling to think that you could just have an election stolen like that.
Yeah, that's some BS.
Did you guys happen to
But
hear
luckily,
about
he
that?
didn't hit.
I'm sorry, you're saying?
Well, I was saying, luckily he hit. So he initially was losing by just over 5,000 votes. It has a law that says if you're losing by 10,000 votes, um, you're not. It's looked at as an insurmountable lead. And so once he hit that point, and they did the Durham recounts, which was stupid because I was like, why do a Durham recount in an area that's highly democratic? Like, you're not going to find the votes to overturn it there. But I'm just glad it's done and over with, and he's gone.
You're glad, man. We are rejoicing here in North Carolina because he has just been like the bane to our existence. It's like there have been so many jobs lost and so much just utter bullshit. You know, he kept wanting to die on flags and hills that were just unnecessary. It's like, why are you gonna pick a fight with the LGBT community when like that's all, especially when you can see where the tide is going on that. Like, it's not perfect for the LGBT community, but it's very close to getting, to some sort of normalization and equality. And it boggles the mind that he would want to pick that fight, you know, knowing where the tea leaves are going. And like
Well,
North Carolina lost so many jobs because of it.
not only that, the idea that like he could have just gotten rid of the bathroom portion of the law and kept all the legal protections for the LGBTQ community. And I think that would have been good enough for most people in the state and most people around the country. But like the fact that he took that portion out and then went like 4 steps further, I think was really his fatal flaw. I think he expected to have more base support, and then once people started losing money, once companies stopped expansion projects, and like thousands of jobs and millions of dollars went out the window, um, he realized too quickly that if I go back, I'm going to be looked like a turncoat. If I keep going forward, I'm just basically, killing myself. And it's interesting the fact that Donald Trump won Carolina. The two senators, or the senator who won was Republican. Also, the only person who lost was the governor.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. That's why I didn't quite know where if Trump was going to win North Carolina because I knew that Pat McCord was so unpopular, but I didn't know if people were going to vote split like that, and apparently they had no problems doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm personally so happy that he's gone, and hopefully we can move on and be a better state for it and stop making South Carolina look good.
Boy, have they ever looked good?
Let's move on to some international stories real quick. Let's talk about Syria, and it seems like in case you guys didn't know, Aleppo has been like the major battleground in the Syrian conflict. We know Gary Johnson didn't know that.
Hey-oh!
Oh, so sad.
But they've had a lot of hospitals destroyed and a lot of infrastructure. It's all but gone, and it's really sad if you look at the pictures coming out of Syria. All these people trying to get away from this senseless violence. You have ISIS on one side, Assad on the other, and different countries fighting like these proxy wars in Syria of all places.
Well,
And Turkey was the latest to jump in the fray, and they joined. I don't know if they're necessarily on the side of ISIS, but they're definitely fighting Assad's, which I
yep.
guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can see just because you fight against Assad doesn't mean you're siding with ISIS. As far
I
as I know,
think
they didn't say
right.
anything about siding with ISIS.
I think what's one of those things where it's like, even though you're not siding with ISIS, you're still fighting their enemy. So
Well, it doesn't matter who you. I mean, they're both evils. You know what I mean? Like you.
yeah,
So, I mean, I personally hope we stay out of it, but you know, whichever side you chose, whether I mean, if you fight against either one of them, you know what I mean. It's I just don't think how I don't know how you could side with Assad just to fight against ISIS. I think you should be fighting against both or one, but not you know what I mean, supporting either one. It's possible, but mm, it's a very I don't want to say confusing, but it's a very
it's a horrible
difficult
situation.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, some small bit of, I mean, the fighting is still going on, but um, uh, I read that in eastern Aleppo, the army has Syria's army suspended combat operations for now to I think it was evacuate the people, the citizens in the area, which is good, right? I mean, they won't have to be.
yeah,
Anyways, continue. I just thought that was a little sort of
yeah. That is
good
good news
news.
because then it get people out of the way.
There won't, yeah,
Hopefully, it's not too little, too late. And I
yeah,
think something that should be mentioned when we're talking about this whole situation, why um, Turkey may have jumped in, is there were rumors, and I don't know if they were ever corroborated, but the prevailing thought was that Turkey was getting and funding, not so much funding ISIS, but they were allowing ISIS to use Turkish routes and routes to sell their oil because a lot of that's how ISIS was getting a lot of their money was through these black market for oil and it's it was believed that Turkey may have been helping ISIS in that, in some sort of cutbacks or whatnot. But I don't know if that was ever corroborated or not. But maybe that's why they are joining, against Assad because their cash cows getting beaten. Because I mean,
I
ISIS
don't think
really needs the help right now.
I don't think that's it. I think the reason why they were allowing ISIS not necessarily free reign, but they weren't necessarily bombing them as they were moving along the border is simply just a thing about convenience. Um, but I believe it was in the late summer, early fallish time. ISIS set off a bomb in a Turkish community, and then set off another one near Istanbul, and um, after that, they started bombing ISIS. I think the reason why they're bombing Assad's people right now is because of the fact that they see the rebels falling back, and they realize that they're not going to be able to keep it because, the Russians are, while they're bombing ISIS, are also bombing the rebels to help Assad out. So they're trying to basically make a buffer zone so that when the Russians run into ISIS and the rebels, and hopefully the Kurds, as far as the Turkish are concerned, they'll have a nice little anvil so that the Russians can be the hammer. I think they Assad, and they do. I think they're more concerned with the Kurdish rebels getting their own land, um, and with I think they're basically trying to build a nice buffer area between them, Assad, and whatever chaos is in the middle.
Well, it's something we're definitely gonna have to, look into. I hope we don't
Yeah.
get send our people in. That would just be horrible. Um,
Well, the scary thing is that with Turkey being a NATO country, hopefully they're not seriously attacked to the point that they have to evoke the NATO mandate, where attack on one country is attack on all, because that would
Well,
probably drag us in.
I have a dumb question. Is that okay? Turkey is the one that's actually attacking Syria right now. But if they attack, if they obviously fight back, that doesn't count as them necessarily being attacked, right? Because Turkey's the one that kind of was like, "We're jumping in." Is that, or does it hold true for that too?
I
Well, it's
think it
one of
holds true for that. It would be a sticky situation. I think it would depend
yeah.
on how. It would really depend on who's attacking them because if Russia attacked Turkey because they were attacking Assad, then
We'd be in
we
there.
we have
Well,
to we'd
okay.
have to respond.
Well, yeah, no, see, I mean, I would see that because then Russia's the one that actually went up. But if Assad attacks
Oh yeah,
Turkey, then Turkey started it with, but at least in this instance, Turkey's the one that was like, "We're going after him." You know what I mean? So obviously, what's he gonna do? Just stand there and be like, "Sure, guys, beat the crap out of me, no problem." He's gonna fight back. So I was just curious. Like I knew the whole thing with NATO, but I didn't know how that all really worked.
I think we would find a way to not attack. To be quite honest.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, it's not that I don't think we should fulfill our duties. You know what I mean? Because honestly, that's what keeps everything kind of running. Everyone's too intertwined in this world right now to really just turn a blind eye. But especially us. But I just I would hate to see us go fight something that really is something that we shouldn't be involved in right now. Like I just don't see why we need to be involved at all. That's something we need to. We've got our own stuff that we really need
Right.
to get in line and take care of. It's
There's an
like we're
argument for like the humanitarian response, but at the same time, you still have to look at the fact that there is no. We're not going to fight a three-way war. We're not going to fight Assad
we
and
can't.
ISIS.
There's no
So
point in us. And this might sound harsh, but it goes back to the taking care of yourself first, before you can take care of anyone else. If we continue, you know what I mean, like to try to take care of everybody else while we're ignoring ourselves, there's not going to be an us anymore to go help. anybody else. You know what I mean? And I know that might sound a little extreme, but ultimately, eventually, that's what'll, you know what I mean, happen. It's not, again, I don't think we should turn a blind eye to something that is serious, like, like I personally think we should have gotten involved in World War II sooner than we did, but I don't know, I might have felt differently at the time, you know what I mean? I wasn't there. But as a citizen, looking back, I think we should have, but there are other situations where, yeah, there's human rights issues going on, but at the same time, there's only so much. We can't save everybody. As you know what I mean, there are other countries that can step up and do what they got to do, which it looks like some of them are trying, but we really got to take care of ourselves, and we don't need to be involved in something else right now, especially. And I not again being negative Nancy about it, but especially with this transition with Trump, I think this next year is going to be a really big deal for us. You know what I mean, on how things are going to go in our citizens and our government and everything. So,
yeah, and speaking of the transition, we know Trump has been really close with Russia, so that's something else to take into consideration. But I think either way, America's not gonna act until we get a transition team, until Trump gets in there. So I don't think anybody really has to worry about troops going in, at least American troops for now. And I can't imagine that. Trump seems like an isolationist, so I can't imagine him jumping into this, even if Turkey got, attacked.
yeah. Well, hopefully, hopefully that's the case. But I guess we'll see. And we can sit and talk about what might happen, but until it happens, we can just hope. And if you pray, then pray. If you don't, then good wishes, whatever.
Pray.
Yeah.
If you don't pray this one time.
It just make the exception, It is Christmas time, right? So, although I guess, anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But, yeah.
Let's move on to, I guess, our last story. Last week, 2016 took another great one. Fidel Castro died.
Another great evil.
I'm joking about that. Yeah, but
Yes.
Fidel Castro died. And the infamous dictator of Cuba, and it had a lot of mixed responses. From Justin Trudeau up in Canada to Trump, who seemed to be dancing on the old boy's grave. But even there were mixed responses, even in America. It seemed like a lot of Florida, and Jen can attest to that, celebrated.
Yep.
And then
Parties in the street.
right, and then over in Cuba, there was a lot of mourning. But
Well, of course. Sorry.
yeah,
Oh,
no.
stop.
take right, take what you will for that, I guess. But yeah, so your guys' thoughts, because I recognize that he did do some good things, but I don't think that the good things that he did overshadow all the bad that he did.
Yeah.
I think he obviously was a monster. I just also have to. I think we need to take into account the conditions that made him and allowed him to stay in power. I think it's very easy for us to say that, oh yeah, he took power to exploit his country's resources or whatever. But we also have to realize that at the time, the one ally that he had at the beginning, the United States, basically turned on him when he went and opened up his country staging ground, and then attempted to assassinate him numerous times over.
He
So
would have done on his... Go ahead, sorry.
No, I understand. I don't think you can deny the fact that he was a bad leader, a bad dictator, who alienated people, executed people, imprisoned people, broke up families. All of that is true, but he was a bad actor in a world of bad actors, and he wasn't nearly close to being the worst.
Well, for the Cuban people, he was. And I think, yeah, there are always circumstances that I think lead in history, as you call them, bad actors, to get to the point where they are. But the fact of the matter is, they did what they did. And it, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't erase, and I know you're not saying it does, but I think when someone dies, like Justin Trudeau's statement bothered the hell out of me, I think, and other people's statements just bother me because I think to bring up the good that he did when he died and not ream him for all the bad he did, to me is essentially being like, you know what? Yeah, he did bad, but you know, whatever. He's an okay guy. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just saying there have been plenty of people, Trudeau, one of them, and other certain types of, I guess, I want to say left leaning. I hate bringing that up, but left leaning people, not all, but a lot of them, which surprises me because the left liberals usually are more about, you know, human rights, right? Like, you think liberals, you think they are for the people, and you know what I mean? They're there to fight for human rights. And then I hear a lot of people, you know, in my opinion, it's defending this evil man and bringing up, you know, well, he wasn't all bad. Well, yeah, you know what? He mostly was. And he died. He, you know, in any case, I'm not a big proponent of speaking ill of the dead, but when someone was bad, you don't make bull stuff up. Like, you know what I mean? You don't just be like, or ignore all the bad they did. If you're going to say something about them, make it clear what kind of person they were. You don't have to necessarily go, you know, get down and dirty about it. You know what I mean? But, you know, I think for the most part, I think Obama's statement was fine, was pretty diplomatic. So I understood his more. I kind of wish it would have said a little bit more about, you know, how evil he was. But it was a good statement. And I'm comparing these two because they're ones that, you know, are the most public. But then Trudeau's was, you know, praising him. And I don't, that really bugged me. And I don't think that, yeah, there are other evils in the world. And, you know, there might have been certain circumstances that led to how some things were done and why he came into power. But the fact of the matter is he did come into power and he terrorized, you know, so many Cubans and now Cuban Americans and their families for such a long time. And he was just pure. He was disgusting. He was just evil. And yeah, it was on a small scale, but he didn't seem to have the desire to rule the world. He just wanted
To rule
you know,
Cuba.
rule
Yeah,
Cuba,
I
and
think
it's
that's
a
one thing
small
that
island. So
surprised me was like his body count was much lower than I would have thought it was.
but he,
That's because of propaganda, man.
you know,
Listen, that's the thing about this. It's like, listen, I'm not saying Castro's not a bad person, but like the reason why Castro is seen as this great evil is because that worked well with the American agenda and our American statement. If you look at the worst people, if you look at, listen, we're the
Oh
only
my
country that had
God.
this crazy embargo on them. And the reason why we had it was because we couldn't give up. We couldn't look back on that one time that they tried to put missiles in there, even though, you know, we've put missiles all over the world pointed at our enemies. You know, it's like making him the most evil in Latin America and South America worked for our agenda, our fight against communism. Even though, you know, at the same time that he's killing and rightfully killing like something like, I think it's over his reign, it was like 30,000, between 30 and 40,000 people. You know,
So
you
you're
had
saying that
Pinochet
he's
who
a victim of bad press?
What I'm saying is that I'm not like again. I'm not saying that he's not a bad person. But I'm saying if we are being historically honest, then we would be atoning for our sins that we did throughout South America. People like Pinochet, what's his name in Honduras, the drug dealer, the drug lord, Noriega, and no. What I'm saying is that when we again, much like Al Qaeda, much like ISIS, much like all these other things that we create, and then when they go bad, we try and wash our hands of them. We created Castro. We're the one who gave him the money, the funds, excuse me, the equipment and stuff to take control in Cuba. Without our influence, there is no Cuban Revolution. Castro he's not even a footnote in history. We did that. He only became an enemy when he stopped doing what we said he would do. And then when he started working with the Soviets, he became enemy number one in our region. But he wasn't nearly the worst guy, really, at any point of his time. Like, you have guys like Pinochet who was killing thousands of people at a time, just disappearing people who were never found. And he's just one of the many people in South America and Latin America that we propped up and helped either kill people or cover up and kill people, and we never take credit for it. So if we're asking people to be historically honest about Castro, then I think we should do the same for the United States. They should go hand in hand.
Okay, first of all, talk to the Cuban people, the people that escaped, the people who
that doesn't change the facts. That does not change
he
the facts.
was an evil. Like, you can't blame it all on America. There might have been circumstances,
Who
but
gave
the
him
main
the
would
money
have.
to do that? Who gave him the money to do that? Answer the question. Who gave him the money to take over power?
Who
when he
chose
took over
to
power
kill
in his
people
first few
and-
years?
But don't you
and
think
beat them and put them-
still has to atone for the things that he did? Whether it
Yes,
doesn't-
we
don't
aren't
we
we aren't
also-
looking at
shouldn't
we
as-
aren't looking
as a
at
country admit
America.
that as well?
We are not looking at. Okay, first of all, America has to atone for a good chunk of the shit we've done throughout history. We get, you know what I mean? Like, we're constantly dealing with.
Really?
Yeah, we are. We are called to do that.
Really? Do you have any idea how many payments we've given to people in Latin America? Because they amount to about nothing. We basically have helped cover it up about half a.
We were talking
deaths in South
about.
America.
We were talking about the death of a dictator, an evil man,
That
and
we helped
to
put
bring up. But he made those decisions to do what he did. That, like, I don't care if I personally gave him freaking whatever he needed. Okay, which if I did, I should get in trouble. But the fact of the matter is, the man chose, okay, to kill people who, you know, for a wide range of reasons. But one of the biggest things was people who went against him, to put homosexuals in work camps, to beat people, to make people fear for their lives if they had any kind of thought outside of what they were told to think. Okay, I'm not, you know, I was not talking about
McCarthyism on steroids.
all the evils of the world and who put who into power. When we talk, and I know I bring up Hitler a lot, but it's because he's someone that everyone pretty much, you know, you mention Hitler, everyone knows. Whenever people talk about Hitler, I almost never hear what put him into power or who put like the reasonings why he got where he did, because there were plenty of reasonings why he got where he did, and which is true of every evil person throughout history. You know what I mean? They don't just gain power for no reason. So
I think it's
when one of them dies. And
intellectually, ignore the fact that for you to look at a stronghold, to look at a despot in a country and wag your finger when you're the person who put that, when your nation was the one who put them in there, who helped cover up his crimes until those crimes started going against you. I'm sorry, you just don't have a leg to stand on.
Well, then nobody has a leg to stand on saying anything about anyone who was evil throughout history. That is true, because every major country, I guarantee you, every major country has on some level or another been involved in certain things around the world that have caused some evil to happen, because that's human. Humans do that. I'm not saying it's okay, but that's how it happens. Acting like the U.S. is really one of the main and only ones that has done that type of crap, and then using it to essentially what sounds like justifying some evil for committing all the stuff that they've done.
No one's asking you to justify. We're just asking people to be historically honest. And that's the thing. The reason, if this had been Russia who had put in a despot and then was thumbing their nose at them, you'd have no problem talking down to Russia saying, you're the person who put that in there. But because it's your country,
no, actually,
you don't have the honesty enough to do it?
I would
don't
still,
have a,
no,
like,
no, no, no,
I'm
John,
sorry.
I
Like,
would still be
okay,
going
guys,
I would still be
let's
going
calm
at,
down.
no,
I would
you
still
can't
be
look
going
at
after Castro. I would not be talking about Russia or anyone else. We are
once
talking
heard you
about
say
the person who
anything
died.
about the bad things. No, and yes, and to talk about Castro's death means to talk about his history. To talk about his history is to talk about how he got into power, and part of that, it must require talking about the people who propped him up, the people who gave him the resources, the people who allowed him to get into power to do the things he did. You can't just whitewash that part away and just act like it didn't happen.
Okay,
there was blood on American hands that caused this, in the same way there's the blood on American hands that got people killed in Iraq with sectarian violence. I'm not saying that it absolves him. What I'm saying is it is part of his history, and to examine his history, you should examine it all and not just cherry pick the ones that make it work with your agenda.
Okay,
that's what
my agenda is talking about a man who made people that I knew personally live in fear. Okay. When I grew up, my friends and their family and whatnot. That's where I get my opinion about Castro from. Okay, so, I mean, that's where I'm coming from on this. Now, to me, or to them, it didn't matter. Like, Castro was the one that was doing this to them. And, yeah, there are throughout history, for everything that happens is a domino effect. And I get that. I am not denying that the U.S., I'm sure, had some form of involvement in something, because we are a big power, and that's huge powers in this world all have their hands in something that's no bueno, and that's that. But when we're talking about someone who died, okay, and when people getting upset over again Trudeau essentially praising this man, okay, and then they're like, well, no, this man did all this evil. There's absolutely no point in bringing up everyone else who might have contributed to putting him in power, when ultimately it doesn't change the fact that the guy was an evil man. Like, we did not make him turn evil. Now, we might, if we fully, if we supported as much as you say we did, then, we might have supported it, but he made those decisions. We did not tell him. He wasn't our puppet. And I think it does a huge disservice to, all those Cuban people and Cuban Americans that have, that fought to get away from that and build a new life and safe and try to get their family out of that country, and that were worried that their family was going to be killed or put in jail for the rest of their lives, because, you know what I mean? Like, he did so many awful things, and I think bringing up everything else, it's kind of it's like deflecting. It completely, America has done their things, and if John, I can never mind. I don't.
It is. If you're going to.
We aren't writing a paper about the whole thing. We're talking about a man.
His life, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8, 9 because those work towards whatchamacallit. I'm sorry, if you're going to talk, and that's the thing I liked about the New York Post, and I liked about Obama's statements, the fact that he talked about the good, he talked about the bad, and said this is a complex person that basically, depending upon where you stand and how you look at these historic facts, that's just how it changes. I just had a problem with people who were acting like Castro just popped out of nowhere, was this evil person who was destroying and corrupting Latin America, when he wasn't even nearly the worst force during his reign of history.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know anyone. I mean, maybe I do, and I just haven't heard their opinion on it. But as far as I've seen, I haven't seen anyone who spoke out against Castro talking just about how evil he was when it came to his own country. Okay, and I've said that too. I mean, I'm sure he had, his little reaches here and there. But as far as I know, I am talking about his evil is, and what he did on his small island. Okay, that is what I'm talking about. And, the fact that this beautiful country, Cuba, which people used to go, the rich and famous used to go visit, you know what I mean, all, so well. And now there are large parts of it that are, I'm sorry, my voice is, there are large parts of it that, it's just so, he just did so much evil. And to me, we weren't writing a report on the history of Castro. We were talking about the human being that did so much evil. And, we can go into every history of why, KKK people, people who join KKK end up joining KKK. And the fact of the matter is, when they do something bad, it's bad. And I don't care why they got there. The fact of the matter is, they made the decisions that they did, you know what I mean, to get where they are. And, it's
a very complicated, position.
I get that it's not cut and dry. I get that it's not cut and dry, and I'm not denying that there was some good that he did. And I can't. I mean, he did do some good. But I just think to only mention that, or mostly mention that, and not mention how evil and awful he was, is a disservice to our Cuban American brothers and sisters. So that's how I feel about it. But
well, let's leave it at that. And I think with that, we're going to wrap up. The next couple of weeks, we're going to do a, look back at the year. So if you guys, have your favorite moments, your worst moments, go ahead and send them in. We'd love to hear them. But until then, John, where can they follow you?
They can follow me on Twitter, Tempe WMF. That's TEMPIWMF, or TempesWorld.com. TEMPISworld.com.
And Tempe's World is coming back, is that right?
That's correct. I just released the last episode on music, and I'm hoping to do another episode to be released next week as well.
Okay, and Jen, where can they find you?
On Twitter at gravel_itsu.
And I'm at Hidonis, and you can follow the show at IMHO Pod on Twitter, and that's our Gmail as well. So go ahead and send in your, thoughts of the year. We want to thank everybody for listening. We're sorry that, we've been away for so long. It's just technical things and scheduling. But thank you all again for listening. Bye.
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 Okay.
This is spare.
What? Yeah. Yeah, so go ahead when you guys are done. I'm going to stop my recording now. Stop.
Yeah, stop mine.
File, save as. Yeah, just export the audio as an MP3 and then send it to me. And upload it to your Google Drive or whatnot, and then share it so I can download it, and then I'll put it together and edit it and whatnot.
What episode number was this?
Episode 33. And worst comes to worst, I've got the YouTube as a backup.
I'm not
Hopefully it won't
loading
have
mine
to
up
do
at
that.
all.
What was that?
Why don't you wait? Was the YouTube the full conversation with all three voices?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you just use that?
Because I have to rip it, and if I need to cut things, it's easier to put it together with 3 tracks, honestly. Because
Is
like
it?
there are times where you cut out, and
Oh, that makes sense.
I know that you kept talking, and depending on what it sounds like, I could probably just put that together because I won't have to do edit around where you got cut out, you know. Since it's your audio side, you kept talking, so I can just put that in, and we'll
I am convinced.
yeah. Okay. If that's it, I'm gonna stop the podcast, which will hang up on everybody.
Okay. Had fun,
And
guys.
yeah. So, Jen, do you want to try and record next week
Oh,
or the week after?
I mean, whatever's good for you. I'm actually pretty, as far as I know, I'm pretty good for as long as I know ahead of time. I'm
Okay.
usually pretty good, and as long as it's like, as long as we can be done by 8,
All right.
8:30.
Then how about we shoot for the 21st then?
Okay.
6 o'clock as
Okay.
usual. Okay. I'll talk to you guys later then.
All right.
cool.
Yeah, just send me a thing when you actually share it or upload that to audio.
Will do.
Okie dokie. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.